All right, welcome back to Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and I'm here with my main guy, my recruiter, Brian.
You sound so professional.
Say hello.
This is your host, Eric.
Yeah.
And you got a really good voice for these podcasts.
Oh, thanks. You know, I've actually gotten that note from a couple legit podcasters that I've.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, you have a voice. Hey, stick with it, man. Or keep it up, kid. You know."
See, I'm not just BSing it just because you're my boss.
Oh, thanks.
You got that, you were in the choir, right?
Oh yeah, I was a choir kid. Yeah, I was a show tune guy.
You could do the tenor singing, but you could also get down there and.
Yeah. I used to sing tenor, and then definitely lost the range. If you don't use it, you lose it. So. Those vocalists out there know what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second tenor. You totally threw me off. That's good. Yeah. So, welcome back. So, in this episode, and probably a couple follow-ups, Brian and I wanted to cover some frequently asked questions. But one of the big themes was just kind of, hey, what do I do to prepare for a career in law enforcement? And so, generally, that's people that are younger, and what I mean is they're trying to figure out their path. They're trying to figure out what to do in all these years until they're eligible, right? Some places you got to be 20, some you got to be 21 to be a cop or hired on. So what do you do at that time in the meantime? Do you go to school? Do you join the military? And so that's kind of the big questions. The simple answer I have is it depends, right? And
I agree.
Yeah, so let's dive into that to start. I guess you've been meeting with high schoolers and middle schoolers, and what do you tell them when they ask or when you do a career fair thing?
So it's really the big picture. I boil it down really basic for them. So I guess I don't need to do anything special with this question for your audience when they're probably not a bunch of middle schoolers listening.
Yeah, but they could be. There's some younger adults for sure.
But really, it's whatever phase in life that you're in. If I'm now talking to the middle schooler, right? You do your life. You have fun. If you're going to get in college, you want to do the fraternity thing like you. Mm-hmm. If your listeners didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
Frat boy, but it was good for you, right?
It was good for me, yeah. Say it's super judgy, but...
Well, it's because I wasn't, right? I'm just jealous. I'm projecting.
But I'll say...
I'm projecting. I'm projecting.
I feel like I used that really well in my interviews and my oral boards.
There you go.
Right, so I talked about how I took up leadership positions. I was on judicial boards, so I had to hold my buddies accountable. I was a treasurer, so I had to tell my friends, like, hey, you got to pay your house bills. Like, this is for the good of the order, right?
But it was you were living life as a college kid, doing the frat thing.
Yeah.
Really, probably to have fun, right?
To have fun, yeah.
That's why you got
to build social circles and such, yeah.
So I'm talking to the middle schoolers, I'm talking to the high schoolers, and I'm really talking to them about, heart issues, right? Can we hire bullies? Hell no, we can't hire bullies, right? Maybe you were bullied once, but you've learned, right? You were young, you were dumb, you were stupid, right? But doing things with integrity, with character, with a good work ethic, right? How many people have been playing sports since they're 4 or 5 years old, and competed at really high caliber, going to state, doing national stuff, right? Having that great work ethic, man, that's part of a resume builder for when you're 21, 22, and you're applying for police departments, right? There's so many different things that as long as you're doing it for the right reasons with the right heart, sticking up the little guy, Mm-hmm. I remember I think maybe I shared it on one of your podcasts before. I took this kid I was 6th grader, there was an 8th grader who was bullying another kid, and this always sticks out to me it was almost like a microcosm for this career. And I took that 8th grader and I pushed him into this trash can.
Yeah.
Because he was bullying this other kid. Well, the kid no longer bullied him anymore, and I was
the problem,
Yeah. But it's maybe I should have put my hands on somebody, right? But I was that's always kind of been in my heart to stick up for the little guy.
Yeah.
And so that's really it's that heart issue. We've got to hire people with good hearts. Now we can obviously go into all of the things, college, military, job,
yeah.
Whatever,
so
but,
just to rewind a little bit,
so that's the big one.
Yeah,
that's the big thing.
So the theme I hear and what we've been talking about we've been at this for almost a year, in this role, recruiting specifically, but it's we just want to hire good people. right? And so when we're talking to students and they're like, hey, how do I be a good police candidate? It's like, simply like, be a good person, right? Do the good things. Do what is important to you, so you put effort into it and you're competitive and you pursue excellence, right? Problem solve.
How about that question? This is genuine question because I don't sit in on a lot of Chiefs interviews.
Yeah.
How about when that question pops up about what have you done volunteer work versus the people that have really good answers about all the stuff they've done versus the guy that was like, I think I've heard the story of. Well, I thought about helping out this guy who was holding a sign on the side of the street, but then I went to give him some food and he said he didn't want it. So, right, that's how he was trying to talk about how he's helped other people, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference there.
Yeah. So I guess it just really depends. Like, we can all think about great examples of volunteer work, right? There's some people that they grew up in a household where that was a thing, or they were in school activities where that was built in, or church or whatnot, right? And that's all great stuff. But then there's even people that just take a pause and they're like, I was in school and I've been working since I was 16, and I would love the concept of volunteer work, but I just try to do as much as I can for someone, right? And it was kind of like the example you're given, but I've heard a candidate say, in the last year that I've been at this job, there's this homeless person that hangs out outside the shop, and I've just kind of taken them on as kind of a little, just a person that I can care for, right? I see them every day at work, and I just see if they need anything. We have leftover food at the shop, and I'll bring it out, and it's going to get thrown away anyway. And I know there's a policy, we're not supposed to give it out, but I know it's fresh, and I know we just can't sell it. But that person is relayed that they're really appreciative. Also, they just know that they're able to connect with this person, right? And that was just a honest, kind of wholesome thing that this person did. Obviously they're not doing it for praise, and they're not even claiming for it to be a big deal. They're like, hey, I'm sorry for this question, but I don't have anything really organized. But it gave the panel this sense of, okay, you know what this is about, right? You know what the purpose is.
I like that because you saying that, it's not like this person did anything to quote unquote prepare for the job by going out of their way to do some volunteer work. It's just this person's got a good heart who has been so busy in life doing their own, right, focusing on their own stuff.
Yeah.
But an opportunity presented itself for him to, or he or she to.
There's a she. Yeah.
To go and help somebody and volunteer some of their time or their services, right, to give of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we know a lot of people do things for altruistic reasons, but then some people do things because it sounds good or
virtue signal.
It makes them feel good. Yeah, so that was a thing when you're applying to school, that's a resume builder if you volunteer. Right. I imagine it's still a thing. It's so old now.
Yeah.
But also I want to defend Greek culture a little bit, because you threw out the frat boy thing, but I feel like Greek culture's been under attack. And no, I'm not going to go down that road. But I will say, it was very formative for me. Not to go psychoanalyze myself as I do in years, but I joined a fraternity because I wanted male role models. I wanted a father figure, I wanted brother figures, and I got that, right? I was able to get out what I put in, and I have these lifelong friends. And so that is to say, as an example, not to make it rah Greek system. There's a lot of issues in the Greek system historically, a ton, right? Many that, I say we, my friends and I, been embarrassed about. Absolutely, right? Some of them really close to home or, kind of the national chapter, whatever, right? But I think just the reason why I even talk about this right now is because my experience in my fraternity, I feel was a positive one. I feel shaped me a certain way that I made some mistakes in my youth, in college, while part of a fraternity, did a lot of growing up, but at the same time, I think that I gained a lot of insight and a lot of character building, right, to make me a better person or a better man today. And I think that some people have that earlier in life, right? Maybe they're rebellious teenage years, or some people have a different experience in the military, a great experience, and other people have, maybe they know people that were in the military alongside them that did not get a lot of positive benefit from that because of how they didn't apply themselves.
And so, talking about the college frat, right? Very different experience than me.
Mm-hmm.
And well, then I guess a lot of cops, I guess, but your listeners probably don't know. Just like an email I got earlier today, somebody asked, hey, am I even would I even be a candidate because I don't have a college degree, right? You don't have to have a college degree, right?
Yeah.
You could feeding you a softball.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and maybe because listeners are from all over, some departments require it.
Right.
Ours doesn't. Many don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing because college is not everyone's style.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the military is probably not everyone's style.
Right. So I got this email today, and I almost was like, I wanted to respond and say, you're shortchanging yourself.
Yeah.
The email said, hey, something to the effect of, I'm looking at becoming a police officer. Can you give me some tips and pointers? I have no college degree. All I have for experience is being a medic in the Army, and I was wondering if that might affect if I can apply or not. And in my mind, when I heard that, I was like, not all you have. Like,
no, that's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. That's incredible. And I want to know more about your story. Who are you, right?
Yeah.
You've maybe been preparing to be a cop for many, many years from all of your life experience, everything that's formed you to who you are today, right? You go out, you take the test, you prepare for the test, you knock it out of the park, you get down in front of an oral board if you're at an agency that has an oral board, and you get in front of people and you start telling your story because you don't have...
Yeah, regardless, there's going to be some interview, right? There's going to be a background interview like I talked about prior. There's going to be a chief's interview or command interview, for sure.
And so all these things, I guess what you and I are both kind of getting at with this episode is that it's really about the person, right? And who we're looking at, and the heart behind that person, and how to show me who this person is. One thing that I actually say to younger people that are going to sit down for interviews, what can I do to prepare for this interview? And I think you've done episodes, right, on interviews. One thing that I say is have a point of view, have a perspective, so that we know that we're getting we are actually getting a glimpse into who this person is.
Person,
not the resume,
not a robot.
Yep. Don't tell me about your master's degree in criminology. That's cool, right? But I want to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, find a way to humble brag, right? Like drop it
Absolutely.
or like what you got from it, like how it challenged you, what you learned beyond the book work, but like what you learned about the world, like your worldview, right? How did that affect that?
Yeah, for sure. Me, I guess just a little bit about me. Like I played sports, and I stayed in athletics. I did really well in school, but I went to Running Star. I got like 30 credits, right? I didn't get an associate's. Didn't go to the military, right? I sold shoes for 3 years, and then I mowed lawns for my dad's landscape company.
Hustling.
Yeah. And then I was 22 years old looking to apply at police departments, and how was I going to compete with, in my mind, how could I compete with anybody who's got a degree and military experience and all that? And so then I guess maybe this is for another episode, but I had to build that resume, so I became a corrections officer. It was a stepping stone, basically. I went and spent 3 years in a jail, but then when I went to go sit down and interview 3.5 years later for police departments, I was defensive tactics instructor. I was a gang investigator. I got some really great experiences in that job. But truly, though, I've been really kind of preparing myself for this type of work since I was young. Just always kind of being built and taught kind of how to live life, with a good heart. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to prepare, but we're trying to look for good people. Right?
Yeah. It's all like what have you done with the experiences you have? Like what have you built? What character have you built? What traits have you built? Right?
Yeah.
And so even when you're talking about yourself, like I think, okay, like you wrestled, and anyone who knows a wrestler or has wrestled, like that's not like a check the box sport,
Right.
Like you got to grind.
It's the hardest.
Two-a-days,
for sure, it's the hardest sport.
Mental fortitude, no joke, right? Weight cuts, like all that stuff.
If you lose not because of your teammates.
Yeah.
You lost because you lost.
It's on you. There's full ownership, right?
For sure.
But then you're working for with your dad, family business, like. We've talked about this before, but you're an excellent speaker. Like, you're very charismatic. You communicate really well.
Oh, thank you.
Shoot, you're a hostage negotiator now, right? So, like, how much did selling shoes form that or help that?
You're right.
probably a lot. Like you're talking to all kinds of people from all walks of life. You're accommodating your patient, customer service 101, and that's what public service is. Like there's that service element that some people kind of forget.
Yeah, I sold ice cream back in high school. I can use that, right?
Yeah, and like so to me, like even I think like it's not to say you would not have been a good candidate. The times, like the year, like there were not a ton of police spots. It's very different than today.
Yes.
Very different than when I hired on just a few years prior to that.
Yes.
So it's crazy how much that shifts, but then what did you do with it, right? Like you put yourself to task, not just a very clear, I guess, transitional job, right? A good stepping stone, foot in the door, criminal justice job, corrections, but not just a checkbox, not just, hey, I've been a CO for da-da-da years, like, I should be a cop now. No, it's like, you did the extra.
I did, yeah. I considered becoming a TAC officer at the academy for corrections, and actually I was among one of the finalists to go and do that, and I was kind of building that resume. I knew I made that decision to become a cop, like when I was like about 19, I was selling shoes. I think I shared it on your podcast just briefly, kind of that story, but I knew that I was a long ways until I could become a cop to even apply, these several years. That seems like a long time back when you're 19.
Oh, it's
right?
a super long time.
But really, but then it came time for me to apply, and it was 2010, and agencies were not hiring people. It was like 1,100 applicants for Tacoma at the time, and there were like 2 spots.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had to do something to prepare tangibly, not just a good heart, not just a good work ethic, right? I had to do something, and so that's what I did.
Yeah, and then even like your applicant example, like saying, "Oh, all I've done is a field medic in the military." Like, my God, like that's no easy assignment, right? And that's like very applicable, like especially if you work or live in like a more violent area, right? There's like violent crime. Like it's not uncommon for officers to carry a lot of emergency trauma gear. We have officers with field medic, combat medic experience, and they are like integral to like helping us train. We get some basics with tourniquets and trauma packs, like chest seals, and our officers use them like pretty regularly, sadly, but they're ready for it, right? So like that translates like the heat of the moment and prioritizing and thinking about your training, like falling upon that, like that's huge.
Or even just being a mechanic in the military, right? Yeah. You're waking up, right? You're accountable, right? You have to be there for your unit, right? You're showing that by the end of that, whatever, maybe it's just a 4-year career. I guess you call it a career, right?
Yeah.
And just by the end of that 4 years, though, even if it was just being a mechanic or a cook, right, or whatever it is, right? You're showing up every day, doing the best that you can, right? Promoting, maybe you end up,
Yeah, but so I think it depends what you do with it, right?
Exactly,
and so I've recently gotten this question. Actually, an applicant, I was trying to follow up with the applicant about, corrections, because police didn't pan out for him, but corrections, we have a few openings right now, and he actually informed me that he just enlisted in the military. I'm like, good on you, and thank you for your service. But he, instantly said, hey, like I need time to grow up and seek more challenge, and that's what he decided. Cool. Corrections would have been a good viable option, but at the same time, it's like there are a lot of people. We get a lot of military candidates that didn't really do much. Right?
True.
They just signed up, and they did what they were told. They fell in line. They were over here. They were over there, assigned to whatever, right? But did they take on those additional training opportunities or the additional, whether it's training or missions or supervisory experience, certifications, and like if you just showed up, then like what does that? I mean, there's nothing shiny about that, right?
And then that goes on to talk about how many applicants that we look through their personal history questionnaire, and they've got these degrees, and they've got maybe some life experience, and they've done these really cool jobs. But then you meet the person, and we're really talking about the whole person, right?
Yeah.
When we're doing this recruiting thing, we're meeting all these different people. It's not all it's about. It's not everything that's on the paperwork, right? Maybe they score really high on the written test, right? But we bring them into our doors. We start meeting these people and getting to know these people, and it's like, no,
something missing.
There's something missing.
Yeah.
There's something missing. So, you don't have to be the shiniest sharpest. I shouldn't say sharpest tool in the shed because it makes it sound like we're not looking for intelligent people. But
well, we are, but you don't have to be like a rocket scientist. It's still police work.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to. You don't have to be that really shiny, perfect candidate, right?
Yeah.
Like some people think that you have to be. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do as much as it matters how you do it.
Yeah.
Like this is maybe that's a way to
sum it up.
Yeah, boil it all down.
Although
mm-hmm.
there are a lot of things, maybe this is for your next episode, that you can do to prepare specific things. Like you're 21 years old and maybe you should start in corrections. Or, I think what comes to mind is we had a candidate who was a football player in college, right? Seemed like a good kid, but man, some of recently just up to the point to when we were looking at doing his background and whatnot, it's like, man, some of these mistakes that you've made in college are just a little too recent, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do? You don't go volunteer with SWAT things. You can go and, so there's a lot of other tangible things that you can go and do that we can talk about later on. But,
yeah, so to give the listeners a couple takeaways is focus on, do what is something that's exciting to you, right? Something that you can feel passionately about, so you do invest. Because in all the examples that we talked through, whether it was sports or this work opportunity, even when you're describing it, I'm thinking, okay, that's a candidate that, or it's jogging in my mind certain candidates that fit that bill. But what I liked about them was their determination, right? In whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what the thing was, but it mattered how well they did it.
Yeah.
We hire, a candidate that has a master's degree. We've passed on several that have master's degrees. It wasn't the master. Like I will say, maybe it was the master's degree that made her stand out a little bit. But it was how she talks to people and how she takes on challenges and how she interacts and how she's humble and just driven, and like that's what made her stand out.
Yes,
right.
100%.
And then I guess to circle back a little bit because you mentioned it's a younger candidate where the mistakes or kind of the minor transgressions were not super long ago. For hiring purposes, we get that people make mistakes. That's the problem when you're young, is that they were very recent. And so different departments will have different standards, but generally we want to make sure that, hey, we're hiring someone that's mature and not impulsive, and those things, they do coincide with age, right? Like, so you're immature, you're more impulsive, and that only happened 2 years ago. That's very different than a 30-year-old candidate that did the same exact stuff, but it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and we're not even talking about the fact that your frontal lobe, right, isn't even done being fully formed. Like 25 years old.
25 or so, right?
Which is in control. Well, you're the smart brain guy, right? Like,
smart brain guy.
Yeah.
It's official.
Yeah. In control of what decision making and... Yes.
So, like, you're changing, you're maturing, your hormones are making you, like, literally a different person, and we know that from, middle school, right? And until you form into an adult. But yeah, so even like when we're talking about young candidates, and I posted about this recently on like Blue Grit Wellness, but you have, was it Ohio looking to change the minimum age from 21 to 18?
Oh, goodness sakes.
And
yes,
okay, so as much as I'm saying, I was the frat boy that, I was the academic kid, and like I'm not a brainiac, right? I got decent grades. I showed up enough, right? I got the degree. I was working and going to school and running a painting business and like a franchise, and that was on me. So I think I had enough things that elevated me and made me a shiny 21-year-old, but I was only 21. So it's still, I'll say, like as a hiring sergeant, now like a hybrid training sergeant, midway through my career, it makes me nervous when we have really young candidates. And we've hired a few.
Yes.
I feel very strongly about them, but man, they're a dime a dozen. No, the opposite of that.
Opposite.
The opposite of that, man. Let's get to that point of the day. They're a rarity. They are the exception to the rule.
Yes.
And so if you're a young candidate, like, do whatever you can to not just present well, but make sure you're doing the right things, even if you're starting to do more things and better habit building, more challenges now, so that you can better prepare for the real deal. All right, man. Anything else before we sign off?
Oh, I'm sure you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours, but we should probably break this up into many different episodes if we sit here and keep talking. But
Let's do that.
No, I think when you circle back around to bullet point those things, doing it the right way, all of it.
Yeah.
We could. I guess we didn't really sit down and put a bunch of bullet points up on a whiteboard and talk all about.
No, we didn't.
All the little topics, but
full transparency, we tried, and then it got really clunky. So you get what you get.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we will be back to talk about a little bit more on this topic, what you can do to prepare to be the ideal police candidate.